thought working night shifts as a jail nurse would be boring. Just me, steel bars, and sleeping inmates. But that job, those long nights, left me with memories that claw at the edges of my sanity. It was 2016 when I took the night nurse job at the county jail. I needed the money. My mum was sick, bills were piling up, and this job paid more than any hospital shift I could find. I told myself I could handle it, just meds and checkups, right? But the moment I stepped inside, I knew this place wasn't a normal place. The jail was old. It was built in the 1950s, and it felt like it hadn't changed much since then. Cinder block walls, lined with peeling paint, flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead like angry insects, and a heavy silence that pressed down on you the deeper you walked in. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but rather was watching. My shifts ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. At night, most inmates slept. The halls were dim, lit just enough to guide your steps, but never enough to feel safe. The security cameras covered every angle, or so they claimed, but even those feeds had a way of glitching, usually when you needed them the most. And they did, often. The medical unit was tucked away in a quiet corner of the jail. Just a few old cots, a locked supply closet, and a wooden desk that creaked every time you touched it. One small barred window looked out into the hallway, but the glass was so old and foggy, you could only see blurred shadows moving past. Most nights were uneventful. I'd chart vitals, prep medications, maybe deal with the occasional migraine or stomach bug from the general population. It was lonely, sure, but quiet, until the third week. That's when things changed. It started with the lights. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the lights in the med unit would flicker, just once. Not a full blackout, but more like a quick pulse, like the building shivered for half a second. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. The place was old after all, and probably just faulty wiring, or some outdated circuit breaker. No big deal, I thought to myself. But curiosity got the better of me. The next morning, I checked the maintenance logs and nightly reports. Strangely, there was never any mention of it. Nothing from the day shift, no outages, no system errors. It only seemed to happen during the night, during my shift. So I brought it up to the corrections officer on duty, a guy named Hendricks. Gruff, middle-aged, built like a fridge, with that tired look people get when they've seen too much and said too little. He'd been working at the jail for over a decade. When I mentioned the 313 flicker, he froze mid-sip of his coffee. "You noticed that?" he said, looking at me. "Yeah, what is it?" He let out a long breath. "Probably just old wiring. Just don't go poking around during that time." And that was it. He turned back to the monitors without another word. It wasn't what he said that got to me, but how he said it. Like saying more might invite something in. That answer only made me more curious and uneasy. I started keeping a journal. Every night at exactly 3:13, the same flicker happened. Once, just for a second. But it was always followed by something strange and something subtle. A door would creak open down the hall, even though it had been closed tight. A security camera would freeze, or I'd hear whispers that are not voices exactly, but more like breaths forming words just out of reach. And then came cell 23. One night around 2:40 a.m., I was called to check on an inmate having chest pains, cell 23. It was in the older wing and was rarely used, except when the newer cells were full. The hallway to that wing was colder than the rest of the building. Not just chilly, but breath visible cold. I remember that well because I could see my own breath in front of me, like I had stepped into a freezer. The inmate, a man in his 50s named Willis, was hunched on his cot, clutching his chest. But as I got closer, he looked up at me and something about his face stopped me cold. He wasn't scared. He was terrified. "They said you'd come," he whispered. "What? Who?" I asked. He looked past me into the hallway. "They live in the walls. They talk when the lights flicker. They told me, 'You're next.'" Before I could respond, the lights flickered. 3:13 a.m., the exact second. And behind me, from the dark hall, I heard it. Bare feet on the tile. I turned around immediately, but the hallway was empty. When I turned back, Willis had curled into a ball, rocking. "They're always watching," he muttered. "Always watching." I called Hendricks to escort me out of that wing. When he arrived, he didn't say a word, just looked at me with a tired kind of pity. We didn't go back to cell 23 again for over a week. As for Willis, he was transferred, supposedly for mental health reasons. But the next night, it got worse. I was alone in the med unit, reviewing charts. The door was closed, lights buzzing softly above me. Then the flicker came back again at 3:13 a.m. I looked up. There was someone standing behind the frosted window. A silhouette, perfectly still, tall, too tall. I stood up with my heart racing and opened the door. No one was there. The hallway was dead silent. I walked out, checked both ends, nothing. But when I turned to go back into the med unit, something caught my eye. The reflection in the glass. There was still a silhouette in the window, but it wasn't me. It stood there, behind me, and was watching. I spun around immediately but found nothing or no one. That night, I didn't sleep when I got home. I called my supervisor, asked if anyone had reported anything strange in the old wing. She sighed. "You should talk to Barnes," she said. "He used to do your shift." I called Barnes later that evening. His voice was quiet and nervous. "Listen," he said. "Whatever you're seeing, don't let it get too close." "What do you mean?" "I made the mistake of opening that door once. The one at the end of the old hall, the one they keep locked." "There's a door?" "Yes," he said. "It used to lead to the old isolation chamber. It was sealed off years ago after a suicide. Inmate hung himself with a bedsheet. They said he scratched symbols into the walls with his own blood. My skin went cold. I heard whispers every night after that. I started seeing them in the mirrors in the windows. Eventually I quit. Couldn't take it anymore. I thanked him and hung up. That night, I did something stupid. I went to the door. The one at the end of the old hall past cell 23. It was rusted and sealed, but not locked. Just latched. I opened it. The air inside smelled like rot and mildew. The walls were covered in dark stains, while some faded, some recent looking. There were markings too. Carvings, spirals, eyes, scratches in long looping patterns, and in the center of the room, an old metal cot. I stepped closer, and my flashlight died. Not flickered. Died. Total blackness. And then I heard it. A whisper. So close it could have been inside my own ear. "We've been waiting." I ran. I slammed the door shut and never opened it again. 2 days later, I handed in my resignation. No explanation. Just a short letter and a deep, unshakable need to never step foot in that place again. I couldn't sleep, nor eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that thing in the mirror. Not just its face, but the way it knew me, like it had been waiting. Hendricks didn't try to stop me, he just gave a slow nod, like he understood. It's been years, but I still wake up at 3:13 a.m. No matter how exhausted I am, no matter where I sleep. And sometimes, just for a second, the lights flicker. If you ever find yourself working night shift in a jail, don't go near the old wing. And if you hear whispering in the walls, don't listen. Because once you hear them, they know you can. And they never forget a voice. No bars or miles can keep them away. You think you've left them behind? They are already inside. If this story kept you up tonight, there's more where that came from. So subscribe to Insidious Inc. for more true horror that finds you when the lights go out. And remember, some doors should never be opened.